Slashem, Slashem. Did I start too low? It was a good Erev Shabbos, everyone. A good Erev Shabbos, and a welcome and thank you to all of our sponsors for tonight. To thank you, first of all, to our annual Talmud Torah sponsor, the Tilsa Mishpacha of Eretz Yisrael, for dedicating all the Shirman Drushos this year in the Schos of Besoros Tavos for all of Am Yisrael. And thank you to our Shir sponsors for tonight, Azriel and Iris Miller, Le'iloi Nishmas Mordechai Ben Zev Meir, and Leah Liza Bas Moshe Zichronim Livracha. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama Slav and Aliyah, and the family Zeh Nechama. To thank Jerry Applebaum for dedicating this year in appreciation of all of the Thursday night Chaburites. I think that's the first time, Chaburites. And that are learning Shem Yirtzeh Hashem be a schus to bring our hostages home b'shalom and b'karov, and the Yirtzeh Hashem to provide our holy soldiers with incredible success b'chol ma'aseh yedeihem. Incredible. And a tremendous mazel tov to Rabbi Yehuda Roll and his wife on the birth of a baby girl, Tamar Leah. Mazel tov, mazel tov. A welcome to the proud Zayda. Welcome to the proud Zayda. Siman tov, mazel tov. Siman tov, mazel tov. Siman tov, mazel tov. Yay, lana. Siman tov, mazel tov. Siman tov, mazel tov. Oh, mazel tov. Yay, lana. Yay. Sim dive, mazel dive, sim dive, mazel dive, yay! Keep up. Just make sure that everyone in the back does also, okay? Oh, thank you. All right, I will say good Erev Shabbos, tremendous Zechus Baruch Hashem, to continue in the words of the Heilige Piashatzna. And we are continuing in Yirtzeh Hashem tonight in Tzav Zerus. We're towards the end of the Sefer now, actually, and we are picking up in section Lamed Ches. We actually began a little bit of a teaser last week with the Rebbe's words, but we'll Yirtzeh Hashem begin and Yirtzeh Hashem finish this particular. So there's always such a conflict about what to do. We have so little time on Thursday nights. We should really do this Chaburah every night. Where's Tzvi Friedman? You up to that? You up to that every night? And I will say tremendous.
Only Thursdays free though.
Only Thursdays all you can eat. That's I got it. So a tremendous shkach to Reb Tzvi, to Reb Yaakov. I'm assuming the chumas. Oh, that's right. Okay, right. Got it. All right, we'll keep that to ourselves. Yeah, got it. All right, good. So, and a tremendous thank you. Steve Golaskov is not here tonight. He's headed to New York. He's headed to Eretz Yisrael. Yirtzeh Hashem. He's on his way. He's on his way to Eretz Yisrael. Yirtzeh Hashem. But again, Reb Steve always makes sure that the shir is prepared, even if he's not going to be here. So tremendous thank you to Reb Steve, and he listens on the podcast later on. Tremendous thank you, Reb Steve. Okay, so we'll say with that, let us begin. So tonight, Rabbi Shmuel Silber beginning in section Lamed Ches. So we began this section last week. I think was like a life altering piece by the Rebbe. Every week is a life altering piece by the Rebbe. But last week in Lamed Vav, we saw the power of the nigun. right? The power of song to be a ladder of ascension, your ladder of immediate ascension when you need that spiritual pick me up. So in Lamed Ches, the Rebbe says something different. This is also incredible. And again, I just want to point out. Remember, Tzav, for those who are new, Tzav Zeruz is kind of like the spiritual diary of the Piagetna. And as such, the sections don't necessarily flow one into the other. They're often like separate, independent, disparate parts that, of course, they come together to form a beautiful harmony, but Lav Dafka, that one section is connected to the next. Look at Lamed Ches. This is incredible. Im olo lecha pisgamim uklalim ba'avoda b'mosar mutav. So it's like this. Section Lamed Ches, page Shin Ayin Tes. So it says as follows: when you go through life, you accumulate pitgamim uklalim. So what's a pitgam? Right, a mantra. You acquire mantras. Klalim means principles in life. So if you go through the journey of life, and you have like your life adages, your life principles, right? Your mantras, the klalim, the things through which, right? The things that, the statements, almost like the mission or vision statements, your mantras through life. Mutav, the Rebbe says that's good. That's good. That's very important. Vimlav. Now, what if you don't have any mantras in life? What if, it's always interesting. It's always interesting that a lot of times children are able to say, my parent always used to say X. They always, and what's interesting is often when the child was young, the parent thought that the child was ignoring that thing the entire time, right? That they were never paying attention. And often they weren't paying attention. But the truth is, especially if the parent was not just someone who said certain things, but modeled certain things, those things get passed down. It's always very striking to me as someone who spends a lot of time at levayas. I don't mean like recreationally. I mean like professionally. It's fascinating to see. So that was a little delayed on there. It's always interesting to see, like after 120, what people say about a parent or what people say about a spouse. So, a lot of times it's, very nice things, but every once in a while you come to a levaya and you're like, wow, like that parent or that spouse or that person really stood for something. They really stood for something. And the raya, the proof to that is, sometimes when you're at a levaya, you ever been at a levaya where every single person giving the eulogy is saying pretty much the same thing? So sometimes, if you're in the audience, you're like, oh, come on, you just said that. I will tell you, to me, I always appreciate that, only because then it's MS. When you hear people repeating the same things, you're like, wow, that person stood for something. They really actually stood for something. They had a mantra in life. They had a mahalach. They had an approach. And they didn't just say it, but they lived it. And they didn't just live it, but through living it, they modeled it. So the Rebbe says, if you have your pitgam, which you're saying, or your mantra, or you have your klolim ba'avoda u'bemusar, or you have your general approaches, in your avoda, or in the way that you live your life. Mutav, that is good. Ve'im lav, if you don't, right? If you don't have any mantras, or you don't have any sayings, or you don't have any vision statements, or mission statements, or particular things that you are identified with. Listen to it says, Oshu, she'enat ha'shokeas atzmacha v'eschayecha b'Torah. That is indicative that a person like that is not really steeped in Torah. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? If I don't have a mantra, then I'm not steeped in Torah. Now we'll define it in just a moment, right? I'm sorry. Or turn the page. Umusar. O sha'ata sandal. Or the other possibility is you're a shoe. Now, what does that mean? So one of two possibilities. If you have no mantras, you have no sayings, you have no life vision or mission statements. So that means one of two things. Either you're not embedded in a life of Torah, or you're a shoe. Now, what does it mean to be a shoe? What does it mean when the Rebbe says it's a shoe? I'm sorry? You're a tool. What does that mean? You're a tool.
That's what they call guys nowadays.
That's the kids. That's the kids are saying. That's the kids are saying. So, all right, I'm old. You're a young guy. So I'll use it in old mad lashon. So I'll say, on one hand, you know what the great thing about a shoe is? Everyone
steps on you.
Yeah, good, true. But it forms your foot. The good thing about a shoe is a shoe never gets confused with anything else, right? No one ever thought, oh, I thought those were my pants, right? Or I thought that was, I thought that was my pillow. Like, a shoe is what it is. It has a tzura, it has a form, it has a function. By the way, it's very purposeful, it's very good. It's very important. I'm always reminded that, whenever she goes shoes, it always reminds me. My grandmother, Zichron Livracha, was on a death march at the end, from Auschwitz to Majdanek, was at the end of the war. So they were Hungarian Jews, so they were really rounded up only in 1944. And my grandmother, Zichron Livracha, always used to say, I remember when we were little and we would get new shoes, so she would always stare at new shoes. It was so fascinating, even as a child. And she said, if there's one thing she learned, it's that, a person could survive without food. A person could survive without water. A person could even survive without clothing. But there's one thing that you cannot survive without, and that's shoes. She said on the death march, if you didn't have shoes, you were done. Anything else, she said, it's incredible. Human endurance is incredible. You could actually power through without anything else. But shoes, so we're not diminishing. We're not diminishing, right? Remember again, what's the halacha? What bracha do you make when you get a new pair of shoes? What's the bracha? So again, the Aruch HaShulchan brings down that the bracha that you make is Sha'asali Kol Tzarki. So Aruch HaShulchan brings it down. Sha'asali Kol Tzarki. Thank you, Hashem, for giving me all of my needs. It's shoes. It's shoes. Because why shoes? Shoes, again, right? Shoes, the Gemara says, the highest form of humiliation is to walk around barefoot. The Gemara says, shoes provide a person with a certain sense of security, a certain self-assuredness. So, to be clear, there's nothing wrong with the shoe. But the difference of the shoe is, it is what it is. There is no such thing in the history of the world as a shoe that ever became something else. Right? If you started a shoe, you remain a shoe, you're going to be a shoe, nothing more than a shoe. Right? You're a new shoe, then you become an old shoe. Then you become a worn out shoe. Then you become a thrown out shoe. That's the way it happens. There's no aspirations. There's no ladder of actualization. There's no development. There's no metamorphosis. You just are what you are. I'm sorry? Thanks, Dad. Okay, so good. Thank you. It was pretty bad. Right? I
thought it was great.
All right, good. Okay, so we're switching off his mic. Somebody switch off his mic. So when the Rebbe says over here, I said, just understand. When the see what you started. You happy? So listen to this. So now, therefore, the Rebbe says, if a person has no pitgam, a person has no mantra, a person has no klolin, has no principles or rules or advice or methodologies for how to live life. So the Rebbe says that means that what? I'm not embedded in a life of growth. Because how else do you grow in life without a mantra? How else do you grow in life without a life mission statement, without a life vision statement? So otherwise, what are you doing? So without that, there's only one of two options. Either A, I'm just simply not embedded in a life of spiritual growth. That's what he means when he says not embedded in a life of Torah. Or I'm a shoe. And those are kind of the same thing. If I'm not embedded in a life of spiritual development, then by definition, what happens is I exist. Just like a shoe exists. And again, I want to be clear. Does a shoe have a meaningful existence? Absolutely. There is meaning even in maintenance-like existence. But it's not why HaKadosh Baruch Hu put us into this world. The Rebbe Shalom didn't put us into the world to live a life of maintenance. He didn't put us in this world to kind of just be like a straight line across. So the Rebbe says, if you have no pitgam, you have no mantra, you have no rules, you have no principles, you have no vision, you have no mission statement, then again, you're a shoe. He says, there's no tzura. There's no personalistic tzura for you. There's nothing unique about you in life. You're a shoe. You're functional. You're doing. You're living. You're even accomplishing to a certain degree. But it's all defined. Ki, listen to this. This is such an incredible piece. Kimi shemishtadel es atmo lahamshich es kol chayav laTorah u'moser. Well, say when a person lives his life, and if you notice by the Rebbe's lashon is mishtadel. What does mishtadel mean? Mishtadel, try. When a person tries to live his life, mishtadel es atzmo lahamshich, to move forward in a life of Torah and Musar, right? Remember again, what does Musar mean? This is very important. right? We often translate as like rebuke or reproof. The truth is, remember again, that's not what Musar means, right? The shorish of Musar is Samech Reish Hey, right? Moshe Sar Liros. So it means to move. The avoda of Musar is to put myself on a forward momentum journey in life. We spoke about this so many times. What is the greatest danger in life? What is the greatest danger in life? The greatest pitfall? See, everybody thinks it's sin. It's not sin. I'll tell you why. I'm going to go on record as saying this. Sin is fine. Now, let me clarify. No, hey, don't go anywhere. Lock the doors, right? I got everybody's attention over here, right? You're like, which ones is he talking about? All right. Listen, let me tell you what I mean. It means to sin is part of the human condition. So if you think that you're going to get yourself to a level where you're not going to commit any averos, that's self-deception. That's not true. Now again, the difference is to stop committing the averos I'm currently steeped in. But we know then life becomes like a spiritual whack-a-mole, right? In other words, as soon as you hit one avera down and you conquer that, amazingly, something else sprouts up. A person struggles with hate until the day that they die. So it's important to acknowledge and to accept and to lean into this dynamic. I am always going to be sinning. So Avera, Rabbi Nachman writes this. Avera is not the greatest challenge of man. The Rebbe says the greatest challenge ultimately is stagnation. It's stagnation. When I just flatline, contentment, mediocrity, remaining in place. That's the greatest danger. Rabbi Nachman also brings down mara shchora, what he calls depression or sadness, is also a tremendous, which creates yeyosh, a sense of despair. That's also, but mediocrity, like just remaining in place and not moving yourself forward. That's the greatest danger. In fact, again, I will say, remember again, the most incredible, sometimes you ask a person, what would be better? Like to remain consistently in one place, or to have like an incredible moment of aliyah, like on the spiritual, what do they call like the EKG, right? So is it better to be like a flat line? I mean, not on the EKG, I understand, but like a flat line, or is it better to have like an incredible moment of spiritual aliyah, and then literally again, the next moment, a tremendous fall? So most of us would think that the straight line is better. There's a consistency. In Chassidus, it's very important to understand that that's false. It is so much better to have a sharp aliyah, even if followed by a sharp yerida. Why? Movement. The biggest thing in life is movement. We learn this. Marriage is a very good laboratory for this. What's the worst thing, right? What's the worst thing you could do in marriage? The worst thing you could... I probably shouldn't throw that out to the audience, right? Right? What's when dealing with marital conflict? What's the worst thing you could do? Yeah, violence. That's true. I kind of took that one for granted, right? But yeah, right. What else? Apathy. Silence. Right? Silence is the worst thing. Because what is silence? Silence is a mechanism of like monotonous non-momentum. Like I'm just going to shut it down. I'm going to shut it down. And that's why, again, some people have like this defense mechanism. When things become difficult, they withdraw into themselves, which is understandable, but it's the undoing. It is 10 times better to yell and scream than it is to be silent. Right? Why? Because at least, again, if there's passion and there's yelling, we're moving. We might be moving in the wrong direction. But better to move in the wrong direction than not to move at all. And therefore the Rebbe says something amazing. He says, Ki misha mishtadla, look at the Lashon, Ki misha mishtadla as atzmo, lahamshich es chayiv l'torah u'musar. Someone who is focused on moving his life forward. Why do we learn Musar? We'll say this is Musar. This is Musar. Gemara is Musar. Everything's Musar. Because everything in Yiddishkeit teaches us how to move our lives forward. I don't want to stagnate. I'd rather take 3 steps back than to remain in place. Because at least when there's movement, the juices are flowing. And with the juices, then there's a better chance for aliyah in the aftermath of Yerida than there is for aliyah in the aftermath or during stagnation. So he says, Motzeh minios ve'ikuvim. So when a person is living a growth-oriented life, and I want to move myself forward, so something amazing happens. I will say, we've all had these moments where I decide, you know what, I want to move myself forward, I want to change, I want to do all these different things. So what happens? I begin the process, and then there are minios ve'ikuvim, which means obstacles, roadblocks, right? One would think that the moment I decide, Ribono Shel Olam, I really want to move myself forward. I really want to change myself, advance myself, self-actualize, that like the sea would part for me, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu would send down the malachim, and they're going to hold me up, and I'm going to go, and it's going to be great. And yet the most incredible thing happens. Like the moment I decide I want to be different, every single roadblock imaginable to man comes up in front of me. Suddenly I'm tempted by things that I was never tempted by. I'm distracted by things that I was distracted by. I have problems that suddenly come out of the woodwork. Again, and by the way, a lot of times this leads people to a serious crisis of faith. Because he would say to themselves, what am I doing? What am I doing? This, Kadosh Baruch Hu, I'm trying to serve you. And you're throwing up all of these roadblocks in front of me. But again, such is the nature of life. That's the way it works. The more you want to grow, often the more roadblocks you will encounter. Lo chitzon in bilvad. And he says, by the way, not only external roadblocks. For example, ka'ol ha'parnosa ukidoma. Right? So how many times does it happen that a person wants to advance their ruchnius, and then what happens? I run into a problem with my gashmius. I run into a problem with my parnasa. I'll say, you know, people like to say, money is not the most important thing in life. Do you know who usually says money is not the most important thing in life? Right? The people who have more than enough of it, right? But for anyone who's struggling with money, money is everything in life. Because if I can't pay my bills and I can't keep myself afloat, it is very different to focus on the soul when the body is not taken care of. That is klal gadol in Yiddishkeit. So the Rebbe says, of course, there are external roadblocks like parnasa, but there are also internal roadblocks. He says, rak gam b'kibo pnima. There are also internal roadblocks like what? Keep going. For example, atzlos, laziness. Nitios, midos ros rachman alasan. So now what is nitios? So this is interesting. What is nitios? Nitios means almost like predispositions. We are all born with predispositions. We are. Some people just have a shorter fuse. Some people have a bad temper. Some people are prone to we all have dispositions. So those dispositions often put me at a disadvantage. That's reality. So there are external roadblocks. There are internal roadblocks. Bad midos. V'chevan. Listen to this. So now, if I am a growth-oriented person and I want to move myself forward, but again, recognize when I move myself forward, all these roadblocks come up. Listen to this. And now I'm constantly involved in trying to advance myself. And look how the Rebbe defines it. Look how the Rebbe describes this process. How does he describe it? It's a milchama. It's a war. Every single day is a battle. Every day is a battle. Now let's say, by the way, you see this theme, right? The Ramchal brings this down in his introduction. The Ramchal says, if you want to describe the totality of life in this world, he says one word, milchama. It's a war. I will say this is incredibly important because a lot of times in life, we set ourselves up with a little bit of an erroneous expectation. We expect life to be easy. And so when it's not, we become very disillusioned and disenchanted. And we're like ready to throw in the towel because, hey, it's not supposed to be like that. One of the most important things in life is to lean into the fact that life is not supposed to be easy. Life is a milchama. Life is a struggle. Sometimes the struggle is easier. Sometimes it's more acute. Sometimes the battles are easily won. And sometimes they're tremendously lost. But it's important to understand that not a day goes by in life where there is not milchama, where there is not struggle. So the Rebbe says, person that struggle, he says, and like any war, some days you win the battle, some days you lose. So we'll say, but here's what happens. What happens after enough time fighting the war? What happens? What do you develop? Strategies. As yotze lo klal. Well, what is somebody saying? Burnout. Oh, burnout. Wow. No, by the way, true also. And we'll see. Again, I will say that is absolutely true. You absolutely develop burnout. And then what do you have to do when you suffer from burnout? What do you have to do? Either way, you have to develop either way, you need strategies. In other words, because you can't live life as a burnout. Right? You can't live life as a burnout. So what's incredible is, after enough time of fighting the battles of day-to-day life, you develop strategies. Right? I will say, we all know this. You know where we all deal with this, I think, all the time? All of us have people who we interact with, who I know, I need to deal with this person like this, right? I can't deal with this person like other normal people because this person is not normal, right? So I have a whole different construct. There's a different way I talk to them, a different way I engage them, a different expectation of what the relationship is. So I recognize that, right? I need a strategy. So the Rebbe says, you need a strategy for life. Like life just requires strategy. And by the way, the incredible part is life doesn't simply require one strategy. Life itself requires multiple strategies. Multiple strategies. Now again, ba'ofen zu ubetachbulu zu menatzeach. Uba'ofen zu ubetachbulu zu nichshal. Now what do the strategies say? Now what ends up happening? When I begin, after I fight the battle of life long enough, I begin to realize, this strategy will give me success. This strategy will give me failure, right? This is what we call life experience, right? Life wisdom. That's why, remember again, what do we call an older person? We call them a zaken. Zaken stands for Zeh Shekana Chachma, person who acquired wisdom. What kind of wisdom are we talking about? Not even Torah wisdom. Remember, it's fascinating. The Torah says, Mipnei Seva Takom Ba'adarta Pnei Zaken. You're obligated to go ahead. You know, one of the most beautiful things in Eretz Yisrael, if you go on the buses, right, in the front of the bus, by the front seats, they have the phrase, Mipnei Seva Takum, stand up for old people. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. I will say, interestingly enough, it's not just the Talmud Chacham you stand up for. You stand up for any older person, right? Why? Because the assumption is if a person is old, they have life wisdom. Where did the life wisdom come from? Because I've been fighting the battles for a very long time. So as such, I know the strategies. I know what works and I know what doesn't work. So here it is. The Rebbe says, so this is where do my life mantras come from, right? Your mantras don't come from something you read in a book, right? And your strategies do not come from a podcast or from a shir or from anything like that. My mantras and my life strategies come from the battles that I wage day in and day out. Right? So again, I see the things that work, I see the things that don't work. And again, all of those have become my strategies. What do I need to do to be successful? What do I need to avoid to be successful? What are the things that are going to bring me down? What are the things that are going to lift me up? How do I get from where I am now to where I want to get to in life? Those are my pitkamim. Those are my mantras, my strategies that I developed. The Rebbe says, he goes on, now obviously, people are different. No two people are the same. Umilchamosav hapenimiyim, nitzchonosav v'kishlonosav shalzeh, einon domos l'shalzeh. I will say this is incredible. My inner wars, right, my inner battles are different than yours, right? And my struggles are different than your struggles, and my failures are different than your failures, and my successes are different than your successes. Although we are all in the same boat of the human condition, that all of us are fighting wars day in and day out, none of us have the same war. None of us have the same battles. And even if technically, let's say, you see this, you could have two people who, let's say, have the both same challenge of parnasa, or same challenge of shalom bayis. Even though the challenge is named the same, it manifests itself in dramatically different ways. So no two people have the same challenges. As such, lachein, tzrichim la'alos bekerev kol echad klalim ma'atzmo. So therefore, again, you need your strategies, and I need my strategies. Because my battle and my war is different than your battle and your war. So what's going to work for you is not necessarily going to work for me. We each need our own strategies, our own pitgamim. Each and every one of us needs the strategies, needs the saying, the mantras that'll help us in our particular situation. So now listen to this. So we'll say, so what happens if I go through life? So again, if someone were to ask me, what are my strategies for success in life? If I say, I don't know, nothing in particular, right? Nothing really comes to mind. So the Rebbe says, if I can't articulate what my mantra, my vision, my mission, my strategy is, then what does that say? Simanhu, o she'eno mamshich, right? So again, what that's indicative of, if you don't have a strategy, what does that mean? You're not fighting the war. And if you're not fighting the war, then what are you doing? You're sitting back, relaxing, and enjoying the show. Like, in other words, nothing. Now again, to be clear, it doesn't mean you're leading a bad life. And it doesn't mean you're chasram committing averos. It just means that one is steeped in a lifestyle of underperformance. That's what it means. I'm a shoe. I'm a shoe. The shoe is very purposeful. The shoe is very necessary. The shoe is very good. But the shoe will always remain a shoe and will never become anything more. So if I can't articulate what my vision, my mission, my strategy, my mantra, if I can't articulate those things, that is indicative that my life is not, I'm not fighting. I'm not fighting.
Fulfilling your potential.
Correct. Ein lo. He says, listen to this. Ein lo, this is incredible. Lo nitzachon, velo kishalon. So you know what the good part about not fighting? The good part about not fighting battles in life is, first of all, life is very relaxing. Right? That's number one. And there's no successes and there's no failures. And a lot of people like it that way. It's easy. It's easy. It's parav. Go through the motions, live life. And by the way, I just want to be clear, the Rebbe is not describing someone who's bad. Right? This is probably how like most of humanity lives. Right? Just like get through life. Get through life. Do what has to be done, fulfill the obligations, meet expectations, maybe even surpass certain expectations. But there's no battle to become greater. There's no battle to become excellent. There's no desire for some type of dramatic life victory or self-transcendence. So again, if I can't articulate what the mantra or the strategy is, that indicates I'm not fighting the war. And if I'm not fighting the war, there are no successes, there are no failures. So, shumin sandal. So once again, the Rebbe is going back to the shoe, right? So possibility one is if I have no strategies, no mantras, no vision, no mission, then possibility one is I'm just not embedded in a life of growth. I'm embedded just in a life of maintenance. I'm a shoe, right? I'm maintenance. Or the other possibility is shumin sandal, or I'm a shoe. Now the Rebbe says, what does it mean to be a shoe? She'eno margish atzmo. What does that mean? Means I'm not really in touch with who I am. It's incredible. I'm not really in touch with who I am. So again, I want to be clear. Could a person lead a good life even if they're not in touch with who they are? Yeah. You can do plenty of good stuff. And I think a lot of people, right? A lot of times we're not in touch with who we are for a variety of reasons. For some of us, it's too painful to actually get in touch with who I am, because if I have to get in touch with who I am, I have to confront a lot of the failures and a lot of the mistakes that have been part of my life. So instead, I like to live a little bit detached and distant from myself. You know, it's like I like to stand outside myself and operate like that. Like a shoe. I think none of us have yet to encounter. I'm sure people have very beautiful pairs of shoes. None of us really have ever encountered like an introspective pair of shoes, right? Or shoes that are just simply yearning to be transcendent, or shoes that really understand who and what they are. It's a shoe. It's functional. It's good. It gets the job done. And there are people who go through life who are good, who are functional, and get the job done. But yet the person never understands their true uniqueness. So therefore, I will say, we're going to stop over for this evening, but just to kind of recap. So the Rebbe teaching us, and I will say, I think that this is like tremendous. And this is the homework. So tonight, tomorrow, sometime over the weekend, like take out a piece of paper. And it'd be interesting to see, to write down, what is my life mission statement? What is my mantra? And by the way, you can't choose something that sounds nice, like you heard, like in like B'Shem Gandhi or something. You know, if you're gonna use it, so you have to personify it. You have to personify it. Be interesting, right? That at the end of the day, like, what do I stand for? What is my mantra? Now again, if a person is able to write down on a piece of paper what their vision, what their mission is, what their strategies are, what are my strategies for self-improvement? What are my strategies for self-transcendence? What are my strategies for self-act? What are my strategies? If you could articulate them and write that down, fantastic. That's incredible. But I think for many of us, and I put myself in this same boat as well, I don't know. I think I could make a list of a lot of good things that I do, but I don't know that I can necessarily make a list of like my strategies, like comprehensive life strategies for self-actualization. Like, what am I doing to ensure that I'm not a shoe and like that I'm actually living a purposeful and meaningful life? What's my mantra? I don't know. And the Rebbe says the problem is, if you can't articulate that, the scary part about that is it might be because I'm not actively embedded in the war of life. If you can't articulate the strategy, it means I'm not fighting. Because if I was fighting every day, then Lamaisa, I would need to know the strategy to make it through the day successful. If I can't identify the strategy or the mantra, chances are I'm not fighting. So why am I not fighting? Why am I not fighting? I may not be fighting for a number of reasons. Number one, because sometimes mediocrity is so comfortable. It's so nice. It's so nice. You just shuffle along life and you put on a smile and it's nice and you do some good stuff here and there and you go to work and you come home and you eat dinner and you can watch Netflix and you can go out to learn a little bit and this and that and a little tzedakah, a little this, a little that, and it's nice. And it's really, it's a nice rewarding life. It really is. There's a lot of good stuff in there. But at the end of the day, I'm not fighting. If there's no milchama, there's no growth. Or I'm too scared to really confront the inner me. So I prefer to be a little bit divorced from myself. I prefer to be a little bit outside of myself, from the outside looking in. But either way, says the Rebbe, I was saying, we need to develop strategies. Each of us need to be able to articulate, what is our strategy for success? What is our strategy for the milchama? What is my mantra? What is my mission? What is my vision? If I can articulate these things, that means I'm using them already. And if I can articulate these things, that means I am better prepared to be successful in the milchama of day-to-day life. This is the mantra of the Piazetzna. This is his pitgam. And Amiras Hashem, now through learning the Rebbe's Torah, will be Zoch Amiras Hashem to make it ours as well. We'll say Shkoyach. We'll say Ma'ariv in the main shul, followed by Amid Yomi, given by Rab Chaim Spiro, Maseches Megillah, second night.
Like a stillborn? It's the same idea.
Yeah, Kosmi stillborn. Correct. Formless entity. Right. A miscarried, correct. Yeah, my bell is inside of it.
Maybe the mission is to survive.
Never. Chas v'shalom. That selling is so short. Sometimes the mission. Right.
Stay afloat. She was like, I stopped.
It's the beginning, but that can't be it. Okay, sure. It doesn't have to just be one. Correct.
You need to be constantly.
Always one. Correct.
Yeah, okay.
I know she is. And she's like, right now, we'll do it. Right now, she has to see this. She's like, I'm making changes. When you reach that level,
Something new. 100%. Yeah, 100%. Right. 100%.
All these ones that are like in the process of like
Just like a mission statement. A statement that encapsulates. Correct.
So interesting.
Yeah, God.
You be built like a shoe ship with Rabbi Padre.
No.
It's just